want to dedicate his talk to Reverend Jim Lee from Unity of Detroit, Renaissance Unity in Detroit, one of the largest unity ministries in our movement. This one's for you, Jim, my brother, who represents and embodies what being a Renaissance man is all about. We have been talking about the Sermon on the Mount, the amount of energy you're willing to put into these spiritual practices. Some days strong, some days not so strong, right? We all have those mornings. We've been talking about the blessings of the Sermon on the Mount as awakenings that happen in our physical body. The Bible says just as you have this physical body, you also have a spiritual body. So we're lifting up the spirit within the physical form to awaken to who we are so we can see what's really in front of us, see God face to face. We lifted up the lower centers to our heart, and the heart began to open with the statement, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for truth, for they shall be satisfied." Satisfied. Just a little tiny morsel from the table of substance of the beloved is enough to carry us for several hours. Just a little sip from these magnificent teachings allow us to feel sustained by the presence of that which we truly are. We opened up our heart through blessing that righteous truth in us that awakens us to what's really real in this moment. We then move to the center of blessed, the throat center, this fifth center. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. The mercy you extend to others becomes the mercy you receive for yourself. When you extend anything and give anything, you're the first person to receive it. And now we're moving to the sixth chakra, the third eye, the single eye of spirit. And this says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Yeah, when your heart is pure, you open up the third eye, the mystical eye of the single presence of the Spirit in you, and then you see God everywhere. No matter what conditions you might be going through, when your heart is pure, you see God because your spiritual eye is open to that presence. Even in the midst of the most difficult situations, you see God. You see God face to face. In every face you meet, you see, no matter what their appearance, "Oh look, there's God. You're not fooling me." Let's face it, I see you. You've got a personality. You've got stuff that's heavy on your heart. You've got things that cloud that awareness. But because I want to know God face to face, I have to be willing to see it in your face. When we said to see from a pure heart, we're not talking about seeing God somewhere off in the sky. We're not talking about Father knows best or make room for Danny or some long gray bearded guy up in the sky with a kingdom that maybe we'll get to if we do everything right. We're talking about a spiritual presence and essence that's right here, right now among us. Jesus called this awareness the kingdom of heaven consciousness. And we know that the kingdom of heaven actually means the kingdom, the queendom of Allah. That was the word that Jesus spoke in Aramaic. Allah means oneness, sacred unity. So when he was saying that, he was saying, here's how you get to that place of sacred unity and oneness. It's not a destination. It's an arriving in the present moment. Because wherever you are, God is. Surely the presence is right here, right now. It's a shift in perception. So today's talk is about spiritual perception. Seeing things as they really are. No longer through a glass darkly. We see things as they are. Face to face. We see it everywhere we go, in every face. And its grace floods us with an awakened consciousness. It says in the Bible that God has made us upright, and we have sought all manner of inventions. God has made us upright, awakened, and we have sought all manner of inventions, of things we think we need to finally feel settled and present and happy and fulfilled in our life. We have become the mothers of invention, have we not? Inventing all kinds of ways to try to fill ourselves from the outside in. Luckily, none of them work. That's why I have a job. They don't work. Believe me, I have tried to invent myself over and over again, and I keep looking for it outside, and it's never there. It's never enough. I always want more, until you feel like you're already enough. No matter what you get on the outside, it will never be enough. So enough already. Awaken the pure heart of God and be able to see what's right directly in front of you, to stand up tall in the midst of that presence. And the journey is about being honest with what's going on in your heart. Because where your heart is, the Bible says, your treasure will lie. Wherever your treasure is in your emotional nature, you will begin to collect treasures of things you think you need to make yourself feel good enough. Everyone does this. The seat of the heart is a great place for awakening and also a great place to fall asleep and keep chasing things that will never deliver. Where your heart is, your treasure lies. We have so much that we collect around us thinking that this will finally be it, and of course it doesn't deliver until we open ourselves up to the pure heart and the blessing of the beloved. And we do that when we get honest with what's going on inside of our own being. I'm honoring today Renaissance man. I'm honoring our willingness to own our broken hearts, to be present for grief, to be present for the pain that we carry in our hearts. Because until we bring awareness to it, there's no escaping it. It just keeps coming back up and we don't recognize it. Bringing awareness to what's going on in your heart allows the pure heart of the beloved to move through you. Jim Lee got up in front of this conference of 600 people at this ministers' conference. And he began by pulling us into a vision. The conference was called Pulled by Vision. And here's how he started. He grabbed us right away. He said, I want you to know that I have had the most horrendous year of my whole life. And everybody, you could just feel everybody feel like, oh, permission. We're not just going to be in la-la land of positive thoughts and rah-rah-rah, and isn't everything great? I feel terrific when everything behind you is falling apart in devastation. He came right out and said, I have had a very difficult year. He has a church in Detroit of 900, 1,000 people with a huge debt, a 1,600-seat sanctuary. He's running that. He was also the president of Unity Worldwide Ministries. And his daughter died this year. And he was sharing his broken heart with us. He wanted us to know that it was the most difficult time of his life to be able to even continue one more day. And so what he did as a Renaissance man, he didn't run away from that. He shared it. He told his board and his huge church, here's where I'm at. I don't know if I can do this. He told Unity Worldwide Ministries, I don't know if I can continue to be your president. And hundreds of hands reached out to lift him up off the ground and said, you are not alone. I am with you. We will help you. We will take care of what you can't take care of. Please, let us lift you up on angels' wings and help you. He said that was the beginning of the end of the despair of the energy moving down. It began to move up to his heart center. He's still, as he will for the rest of his life, working with the grief of that healing. But now he's a new man, open to doing what is his to do, because Renaissance man doesn't run from pain. Renaissance man doesn't deny pain. Renaissance man doesn't try to escape in rosy affirmations. Renaissance man shows up in the moment with authentic authority to speak the pain that's in me now, and I know I'm more than this. I can be lifted up. So his church, Unity Renaissance, now this church now is Jack Boland's church. 1981, I'm a ministerial school student. I go to Warren, Michigan. He just built this incredibly huge facility with a huge amount of debt. Jack Boland was the guy who was the think and grow rich guy, the mastermind guy. Jack walked around with a wad of $100 bills in his hands and he flipped them out. It was back in the days of think and grow rich. You could have it all, you know, just all over the place, all over the place. And Barbara walks out and put it a little side, and when we were talking about that, she's going, you know, the real secret is not what I can get. The secret was about what I can get. The real secret to awakening is not what can I get, but how can I serve and what can I give? That's the switch in consciousness that Renaissance man is about now. So here's this church dedicated to all these prosperity principles, and they decide to open their doors up for 1 week, like all the other churches did, to the devastated Detroit community of homeless street people who have no place to live and no place to eat. They invited them for a week, 100 of them, to come into their fellowship hall and be with them. And he tells this wonderful story about when they first got there. Here's 100 people, street people, homeless people on one side of this huge fellowship hall, and on the other are all these sort of new age, create your own reality people. You know who we are. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying one is better than the other. And he said it was like being at a party with young people and nobody wants to get up and do the first dance. You know that? I'm not going to go over there. And he said by 2 days, 3 days, the group had merged into oneness. They become one being. And yes, there were people who had drug and alcohol problems, probably still do. They weren't preaching gospel, no drugs, no alcohol while you're here. And something shifted in consciousness. Both sides gained something tremendous. They took these amazing pictures that they put up on the fellowship hall, many of which I wish I had with me now. I have some on my camera. Maybe next week I'll show them. And what you see on their faces, the devastation that's there. But you also see a pure heart, a spirit that's there. In spite of the conditions and circumstances, you can see that in their faces, face to face, seeing what's truly there, going beyond the devastation. And Detroit is a devastated city. Imagine now, in 2 years, they have lost half their population. 750,000 people in 2 years packed up and left their homes, left their cars, left their dogs, left. Imagine that now. We're sitting in Wilmington, and all of a sudden 55,000 people in this city pack up and leave everything behind. Could you imagine the devastation of that? And yet in the middle of that, and in spite of that, there is a spiritual uprising happening there. You can feel it. People are rising from the ashes to create what will be the next thing for them. Things like gardens in the middle of tenements where they're taking lots that are for sale for $200 and planting gardens. People are growing their own food. It was amazing. We were on this boardwalk, you know, with hundreds of people going by, and all of a sudden we heard these loud speakers and these horns honking and little bells clinging, and it was a motorcade. Probably not unlike 3 years ago when it was big muscle cars and 396 Chevy Chevelles and all these cars coming down the road. But nobody could afford that anymore. There were men, boys, by the dozens on bicycles. Bicycles with huge stereo speakers on them, and horns and whistles and clinging and clanking. They looked like little Harleys, but they were riding down the street with what they had. They were making the best with what they had. It was just as exciting as the muscle cars were burning $4 an hour, $3 an hour. Fuel rising from the ashes, taking what looks like devastation and being lifted up to a whole new way of being. That's the work of Renaissance man. Because, my friends, we're only a moment away from that being our story in any one day. Is that not true?
That's right.
It could happen just that quickly. But the spirit in you, the pure heart in you, will allow you not to get trapped in what you see with your physical eyes attached to the senses, but awaken your spiritual vision to see what lies as possibility, even in spite of whatever situations or challenges or conditions you might be facing. Everything has a miracle in it. And I feel like right now, on this planet, we are involved in a great, big, huge, cosmic redo. Redo. Let's do it again. Let's start again. Let's begin again. Let's do a redo. My teacher at Ministerial School for Communication Skills was Hypatia Hasbrook. Do you remember her? She was the Brillo soap pad of the Unity movement. She would rub off all the edges you had on you to make you the best you could possibly be. And I got back so many papers with redo, redo, redo. And I'm talking back in the days when you had the old clunker IBM steel typewriter, you know, pounding away. And when you made a mistake, you had to get, some of you don't even know what this is, whiteout. Remember how long it took to correct anything? And Maureen was working at a bar till from 2 to 2 o'clock at night. I had no spell check and no Maureen check. I had to do it myself. I would get 6 or 7 redo. And then finally, a paper would come back and would say, bingo, you got it. Bingo, you got it. This is the best that you can do, and you've shown your best. Do you feel that? That's the redo. Life is one great big redo. You get to do it again and again and again until you get it right. And then you get to do it again. And my best is not your best. What my plan is for me is not your plan. Just do your best. It's one of the 4 agreements. So I'm thinking about the redo when we're getting ready to go on Monday, just last week, Monday, on our trip to go to Detroit. We had Elaine's memorial service, which a lot of energy built up to that. And then we had more at her house, and we were having a birthday party for her. And then the next day was 2 Sunday services, and then there was this wonderful wedding, and then a reception. So by the time the week was over, we were drained. And we had this special ticket that someone had gotten us. This special ticket. So we could have a special experience at the special airport. And we were so ready for our special experience. And you know what? It didn't turn out to be special at all. It made no difference if we had a special ticket. It didn't matter at all. It was the same old thing, even with our special ticket. And so I went when I wasn't getting special treatment because my expectations weren't being met, from Renaissance man to caveman! Boldly going forward with, this is what's wrong with this country, this is what's wrong with the world, this is what's wrong with the airlines. And I noticed that when I was in that frame of mind, that became my treasure. I noticed all the other miserable people, because there's thousands of them at the airport, most feel that way. I saw them face it. I failed the test. I needed a redo. Someone had said that the spiritual path is equal to the measure of your body, because it consists of falling down on your face, picking yourself back up again, and then falling back down on your face over and over and over and over again. That's what we're doing, right? That's the spiritual path, one insult after another. So you can wake up to not being pulled or caught by those things which rise and fall, the slings and arrows of earthly fortune and misfortune. You become centered in your pure heart and use what happens for your cosmic redo. So now it's Friday, and I decide, okay, I'm going to do this experience differently. My meditation was, I'm getting a cosmic redo 3 days later. I'm going to go to the airport and be a Renaissance man. A Renaissance man. No matter what they give me or don't give me, I'm going to be a Renaissance man. Lift up the Kundalini, the Mana, the Prana, the Holy Spirit in me. And it worked well for a while. But then when the flight that we were on from Detroit to Atlanta landed, it was late. So we go to the gate for the Atlanta flight to Wilmington. They said, you missed the flight. I said, yeah, I know, your plane was late. They said, yeah, well, we're bumping you to the last flight at 10 o'clock at night. Oh, that's 4 hours from now. That's special. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Right? Where your heart is, your treasure lies. I tried the miserable caveman way before. Didn't work. Didn't work. So why do it again? Right? Get a redo. Got a redo. Got a redo. And so we sat there and we allowed it to be what it was, said what we could say, but didn't get hooked in quite the same way. It was a good redo. And when we were sitting down in our seats on the little plane that goes from Atlanta to Wilmington, we were sitting there, and it was like, well, you know, how we can go? We did pretty good with today. That was good. We didn't do what we did on Monday. And I said, morning, I put her seat back, and somebody's knees were right behind her, and she pushed it back and goes, "You're hitting my knees, please! Move the seat, move the seat!" So I went, okay. So I grabbed the seat, and I pushed the button, and I couldn't get the seat to move. He's going, "You need to move the seat now!" I said, "You need to ask me nicely." He said, "I did ask you nicely." At that point, I went from Renaissance man to caveman. Inside my being, I could feel that energy rising. I could see this big guy, how tall was he? And I didn't express it out externally. I used it to lift up the energy internally. And there was a literal change in my consciousness within the matter of minutes. I began to see everyone on that plane face to face. Yeah. I was filled with grace. I went from caveman to brave man to Renaissance being. Cave woman, I'm not just talking about men now. I'm talking about brave women who are able to be Renaissance beings. That is why we are here, to face that over and over and over again. Let's go to our lesson summation for a moment, then I'll yell and scream at you some more, and then I'll be done. Here's the first point. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Yes. To see, in this sense, is referring to, in this passage, spiritual perception. And spiritual perception is the means of the capacity to comprehend in any one moment the true nature of being, and not let the eyes that see through the senses deceive you. And I love this one. This is actually from the Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. Both of them are. But this one is the longest run-on sentence I have ever seen. And I love it so much that I just could not leave one particular word out. I'm going to read it to you because it just blew my head off when I read it. Blessed are they who recognize God as the only real cause, and the only real presence, and the only real power. Not merely in a theoretical or formal way, but practically and specifically and wholeheartedly in all their thoughts and words and actions, not merely in some parts of their lives, I love this line, but in every nook and corner of their lives and mentalities, keeping nothing back from Him, but bringing their own wills in every last particular in perfect harmony with His will, for they shall overcome all limitation of time, space, and matter, and carnal mind, and realize and enjoy the presence of God forevermore. And the congregation says, Amen. And say it with me 10 more times now and memorize this. I loved it. I love the fire in the belly. It's the energy that comes from this. So this week, my friends, when the cave woman being beats her chest, as I know she will, for you I know she will this week, you're getting, in that moment, a call for a cosmic redo, to move energy in a brave new way to being a Renaissance being. What does that mean, to be a Renaissance being? It means to see God, to feel God, to sense the presence behind every appearance. It means to feel unconditional love, even in the midst of whatever conditions you find yourself in. To see in this divine way opens you up to the possibility to comprehend in any one moment the true nature of being. That's what we're here to do. So after we got off the plane, I went to the turnstile, and I knew our luggage wasn't going to be there because our flight we were supposed to be on was way earlier, and it wasn't there. And I saw the guy on the other side, the man who had been behind us. I saw him taking his baggage. You know your baggage? I saw him taking his baggage off and pulling it up like this, and then taking the next one off and pulling it up like that. And I saw him, with that look on your face, that weary look that you get, so tired, so weary, so filled with the suffering of another flight in hell. Yes, walking out the door. And when I looked at him, he didn't look at me, but I saw him. I saw him. I saw his face. He was my brother. He was my partner. He was me when I forget. He was me when I remember. I saw him in a blaze of light. And then he walked through the doorway, and this is quite serious, and the door is parted, and I just saw him entering into the light. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. When you use your heart to open up your intuitive sense of perception, your eyes see God face to face in everyone you meet. And let's face it, there's no other reason why we're here. Yes, practice well this Father's Day, Mother's Day, any day. Practice deeply, not just for yourself, but for the benefit of all beings everywhere. Thank you.